Welcome to our next exciting episode of Drawing Histology. I am Rob Boss. On a more serious note, for the endocrine system, we have a lot of histology to do in lab. Looking at the histology, you understand what the different cells are, how they're arranged, and what's going on in the different glands. Hopefully after this video, you'll understand what the structures are and not think everything is just a big, giant pink blob. So, our first gland is going to be the pituitary gland, which is right here, and it hangs from the hypothalamus by something called the infundibulum. That's actually a white matter tract connecting the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland, so it's actually being held on place by neurons. So here's our hypothalamus, and here's our cute little mammillary body. Can't forget the mammillary body. So if we were to look at a very crude drawing, we would have the hypothalamus up here, and we have the cute little mammillary body, and we have centers and nuclei that are taking axons. Here's the neuron cell body, and they're going down the hypothalamic hyphyseal tract, or the infundibulum. Now, that's going to the posterior part of the pituitary gland. The anterior part of the pituitary gland is just hanging on for dear life. And it's going to look more like glandular tissue. Whereas this, since it's part of a white matter tract, is going to look like nervous tissue. So this is the pituitary gland. And this is what it looks like on my microscope camera under scanning, which is actually about 300 times magnification. And we can actually see, oh, there's an axon there. Oh, there's some white matter there. So the posterior pituitary looks like it is white matter. And as a result, it actually is called the pars nervosa. There's a divide in the middle. And then the pars distalis is going to look like our other glandular tissue. I told you it's going to look pink. So let's draw the pituitary gland under scanning power. So here's the pituitary gland. It's hanging down from the brain. And I'm going to draw it like that. And then I'm going to draw this part in a slightly different color, going like that. Now, this is going to look like white matter. So I'm going to actually have these Schwann cells. And I'm going to put some axons in between, like so. So the posterior pituitary here looks like one of the 5,000 other nervous slides we looked at. So the posterior pituitary is nervous tissue, so it's called the pars nervosa. So this part that's sort of hanging off attached is going to look like glandular tissue. Now to you guys today, all the glandular tissue is going to look pink. So I'm going to put some pink dots. And I happen to know there's going to be some purple or blue dots in here, so I will make those dots as well. So here are the blue dots. And in the pituitary gland, there's cells that lack color as well. So I'm going to be lazy and just leave it as the blank white space. Now this is the anterior pituitary. And since it's further from the point of attachment at the hypothalamus, which would be up here, this is called the pars distalis. Distal is further from attachment. Now this divide I made intentionally, that is called the pars intermedia. Now, over here, the pars nervosa is going to make two hormones, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. ADH, antidiuretic hormone, helps you retain water, whereas oxytocin helps you release milk. It's called the milk letdown reflex, and in childbirth. There's 6 hormones made by the anterior pituitary, and these are all called tropic hormones. We'll discuss these tropic hormones when we look at the anterior pituitary under high power in our next drawing. So the posterior pituitary is really nervous tissue. There's some myelin right there. You can see some axons. Whereas the anterior pituitary is actually a very interesting glandular tissue. So we're going to look at the anterior pituitary, or the pars distalis, and look at the cells that are found in it. So there's 3 types of cells found in the anterior pituitary. There are eosinophils, which are a pinkish red. There are basophils, which are a blue. And then there are these chromophobes. Chrome means color. Phobe means fear. So they have a fear of color. The eosinophils and the basophils basically stain with an acidic or a basic dye, and that's why they get their colors. The chromophobes don't like either of these dyes, so they come out as this clear cell. So we're going to draw the anterior pituitary now. Let's start with a basophil. Let's do one happy little basophil. Let's give it a little nucleus, even though you usually can't see the nucleus. There's the nucleus. So there's our basophil. And let's shade it in a little bit. And it looks like it needs a little texture out here, so let's give it a little texture. Now this is a very lonely basophil, so let's give him a friend. So here we have 3 basophils. Now let's do an eosinophil. There's an eosinophil, and there's its nucleus. And eosinophils are red. So basophils are blue, eosinophils are red. So let's fill it in. And yes, he looks lonely, so he needs a friend too. So let's add a couple friends. So here we have it. We have our eosinophils are red, our basophils are blue, and our chromophobes lack color. So we need to put a couple chromophobes in, or at least one. And notice, I only have a few basophils and I have a lot of eosinophils here. That's because in all the histology slides I've seen, look at the sea of red in here. There's lots of eosinophils. That is definitely a basophil. Those, hard to tell. It looks like it's going for the blue side. That just could be a humongous nucleus though. But we'll give them credit for being basophils. But generally, you're going to see a lot more eosinophils. Only a few basophils, and then there's 1 chromophobe, 2 chromophobes. So let's draw our chromophobe, which is afraid of color. So there is our chromophobe, and there's its nucleus. So let's label these. So eosinophils are red, and basophils are blue. Chromophobes lack color. And I really suck at rhyming, so I don't know what comes next. So what are these cells? Well, the eosinophils and the basophils make hormones in the pituitary gland. And they're going to make tropic hormones. These are hormones that control other glands, and 2 of them actually have non-endocrine targets as well. The chromophobes are debated. It might be a burnt out cell, it's just not functioning anymore. It might be a cell that's resting. It's going, oh, I don't need to make anything, so I'm not. And that's probably why it doesn't stain them. Or it might be an immature cell. A cell that's going to become a eosinophil or a basophil. They're debating on it. All 3 are plausible, so all we need to worry about is chromophobes lack color because they're not making anything. So, the basophil and the eosinophil make hormones. And we're going to look real quick what the hormone is. Eosinophils are going to make growth hormone and prolactin. Both of these have non-endocrine targets. Growth hormone is going to help you build skeletal muscle. It is going to help you build bone, and it generally repairs broken proteins. It increases protein synthesis. Prolactin, before milk, causes you to produce milk when you are breastfeeding. So these are the 2 hormones that are made by the eosinophils, and I would not expect you to memorize which hormone is made by which cell. I just want to go over what the hormones do. Now the basophils all make tropic-only hormones. So those hormones are luteinizing hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, adrenal corticotropic hormone, and thyroid stimulating hormone. So, follicle stimulating hormone, it causes follicles to mature, and it causes sperm to mature or to start development. Luteinizing hormone causes ovulation in women, and it causes the production of testosterone, which is actually going to help with sperm production. Adrenal corticotropic hormone stimulates the adrenal cortex, and it causes mostly cortisol, because that's the biggest part of the cortex, to be made, but it does have other effects on the other zones. Then thyroid stimulating hormone stimulates the thyroid gland. So again, don't worry which cell makes which hormone. I promise I will not test you on that. I just wanted to go over the hormones. And these two do have endocrine targets. We're just not going to worry about those endocrine targets because I worry more about prolactin-making milk, growth hormone for protein synthesis. A second gland is associated with the brain. It's the pineal gland. It's found in the epithalamus. And it has two structures. It has pinealocytes, which make melatonin. These are the big dark purple things. Then it has pineal sand, which is deposits of calcium. Now, this is a very easy gland to draw. A scattering of pinealocytes. Boy, these are fun to draw. And let's not forget the nuclei. And then there's structures called pineal sand, which are deposits of calcium. So let's put some sand there, and label. So that's the pineal gland. And I've added on a couple more realistic pinealocytes, so it should be lighter in the cytoplasm than it is for the cell membrane. But that was fun doing the dots. So all this pineal sand. And I want to point out there's a couple blood vessels. So there's a blood vessel there. And the pineal gland is one of the 3 places you don't have a brain-blood barrier. The others being by the hypothalamus and in the choroid plexuses. So that's the pineal gland. Please join me for our next exciting episode where we look at the thyroid and parathyroid glands. Thank you.